You've had 3 terms, you put extra billions into hospitals, yet we were told last week 182 avoidable injuries occurred. We still know that the waiting list, we hear all the time people complaining about the health system, and we hear that the National Party continually says it's all being spent on bureaucrats. Is the health system where it should be?
Well, pretty much it is, and I think sometimes it's best to stand outside and look in. This morning I met a New Zealander who's been over in the UK for 6 years. He said, I want to tell you, your health system is fantastic and so much better than in the UK. Actually, we have a pretty good system. Of course, everything that goes wrong in a public hospital is a problem, but things always have gone wrong. Now, we have to try and drive it to be better, but bear in mind that the number of things that go wrong is no greater than, and actually probably less than, countries we compare ourselves with, like Australia, Britain, US, Canada.
I have to mention it. Did Mike Williams panic by offering his resignation as Labour Party president when the whole Owen Glenn story came along?
No, but he was very distressed to hear a certain commentator calling him a liar. He's not a liar. He's a person of integrity who I've known for over 30 years. He made a mistake when he's rung somewhere a couple of days before New Year's Eve and asked a question by a journalist, and he made a mistake. Simple as that. And we don't accept people's resignations for mistakes.
The Maori Party regard the seabed and foreshore legislation as confiscation. Can the Labour Party and Maori Party work together as MMP coalition partners?
I think the recent agreement with the Ngāti Porou people of the East Coast shows that the Foreshore and Seabed Act is actually capable of delivering very good results for both Māori and everybody else. So, no, it's not confiscation. It's about making sure that where there is a genuine customer entitlement, something can be done about that. But of course, a lot of land's been sold, a lot of land hasn't had continuous occupation.
The UN was critical of that law. Your own Attorney General at the time, Margaret Wilson, wrote a 10,000-word report that basically said it's racial discrimination.
Oh no, she certainly did no such thing. And when you say the UN critical, the UN has a whole lot of people called special rapporteurs. One came who seemed to have a preordained script and went away with not a single part of that script changed. Well, we haven't taken that terribly seriously.
So you don't in any way view that it's discrimination or it's anything like, you just think it's the way that it had to be?
Well, absolutely, because governments had legislated over the years for that area to be in Crown title. Now, if the government hadn't acted, we could have ended up with that very sensitive area of foreshore in particular in private title, with people saying, no, you can't go there. Now, my people, and probably yours, came from a country called the United Kingdom, where ordinary people never got access to areas of beach, areas of riverbank and so on. And when they came to New Zealand, we started a new set of rules, which these areas were public spaces, and I think it's important they stay that way.
New Zealand was one of only 4 countries to vote against the Indigenous Rights Declaration at the UN, along with the US, Canada and Australia. What sort of message do you think that sends to Maori?
Well, the message we sent very clearly at the UN debate was that we could not honestly sign the declaration. We had done a lot of work on it with Canada and Norway over the years, but in the end that was shoved aside by other interests at the UN who just wanted to plough ahead. And some friendly countries said to us, we know the point you're making are valid, but it doesn't affect us, so we're just going to vote for it. So what were we objecting to? Well, basically that declaration said that Indigenous people had a right to occupy and own all lands which had traditionally been theirs, or to receive similar sized lands and compensation for that. Now that's all of New Zealand. That cuts across the entire land law of New Zealand. It would simply not be honest for us to sign that.
Where will the 100 state housing tenants who will have their homes destroyed to put a tunnel under your electorate go?
Well, of course, if there's 100 homes gone, that's far less than 500 that would go if you had to put it over land. So it's a tremendous plus to have a tunnel go to the Waterview connection. But people will be rehoused. That will be in consultation with Housing New Zealand. And you'd need to take into account where people's community is, where they want their kids to go to school and so on.
Let's talk about John Key and the National Party for a little bit, because you say that the election's a long way away, but the polls seem to be running consistently with you losing in double digits. Are you worried?
Well, they're not running consistently like that.
9s, 8s.
There's a whole range of them. But I went into the last election with polls telling me I was going to lose. Even our own polling told me I was going to lose. TV1 has it spectacularly wrong most of the time. And they told me that the National Party was 6 points higher than they ended up being, and we were 2 points lower. So,
but you went into the last election against Don Brash, who
Yes.
shot himself in the foot 100 times after walking the plank.
And what tells you that's not going to happen again?
Because do you really think John Key is the same person as Don Brash is? I mean, I've met John Key. He'll talk to you. He's affable. He claims that he's not going to sell private assets. He's sitting there being fairly centrist. He's learned from the mistakes. Well, he's learned from the mistakes of Don Brash, hasn't he?
No, I don't think so. Look back at one of the first interviews he gave to that spiteful little magazine, Investigate, where he said...
You love Investigate.
He said, my policies are the same as those of Don Brash, but I say it more nicely. And that's what will come into focus in the campaign. This is the same old National Party. This is the National Party that brought 25% higher unemployment. This is the National Party that charged you to go into a public hospital. This is the National Party that took the lid off student fees. This is the National Party which was prepared to rack rent you on interest.
But John Key is saying this is the National Party that's being led by a man who came from a state house, made his own education, has come back here because he wants to see New Zealand have a better future. This is a National Party that has a leader who has an understanding of the financial ways of the world currency, and he understands this thing. He's pushing himself as the new guy. This is a centrist National Party, according to John Key.
Well, not what I see in Parliament day after day. This is the National Party that would have gone the same way as the Conservative government in Australia. What defeated John Howard? Iraq, where the public in the end said, we don't want to be there. Bad labour relations law, like the Employment Contracts Act that the National Party had in the past and is still in their policy today. And of course, the climate change issue, where the Howard government, like Mr Key, is a very late convert to the issue and without any credibility whatsoever.
Didn't what also beat Howard was time for a change?
Well, Mr Howard was 68 years of age. He was going for his 5th term as Prime Minister, and he was a Conservative Prime Minister, just as Mr Key's a Conservative leader, who got up in the end, the public's nose, over Iraq, over very nasty industrial relations law, and over climate change, where he seemed to be out of touch with the times. Now, I saw Kevin Rudd, the Labor leader, went on the same policies as those of Helen Clark and New Zealand Labor government.
So you can say that stuff about John Key, and it may be true about John Key, but the trouble is that he doesn't project that, and so the public don't buy it.
I think he's had a period where he's got away with being everything to everybody. He's talking to an audience in his electorate about the Hobsonville development, where Housing New Zealand is putting affordable homes. He's got them all worked up to oppose having people on modest incomes living in the area. Then you turn on your radio when he's talking to Morning Report, he says, I agree with the affordable housing of the Hobsonville development. I mean, there's only so long that you can go on saying different things to different audiences before you are spectacularly called out. He says wages need to be higher, yet one of the newspapers up north has got the transcript, which the printer, of where he said New Zealand wages need to be lower.
Yeah, the Northern Advocate.
Who is the real John Key? What does this man really stand for? We don't know, because he's held every side of every issue.
So you're not worried at all? You think he'll slip up, or you think the public will come to understand that he's, in your opinion, duplicitous?
Well, we're a long-term government, and we've been a successful government. I think when people weigh it all up come the election campaign, they're going to say, well, what's on offer there and what's on offer there? What sort of New Zealand do we want? Now, what I've been in politics for is for New Zealand to be a fair place, which offers everybody all the potential in the world to do the very best that they can. And I've also sought to build New Zealand pride and confidence in what we do, bring out the arts and creative side of our nature, build up the heritage understanding of people. And I think New Zealand today is a country much more at ease with itself than it was under the very unpleasant years of the National Party in the 90s, and even going back through the Longy Douglas period and the Muldoon years. We are a different country, and that's had a lot to do with the tone and style of